Now I would like to welcome our very own Alexandros Koliavras with our fellows from EACT and IGTA, Mr. Erwin Bastianen, Mrs. Caroline Stockmann, Mr. Helmut Schnabel, and Francois Masquelier. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone, again. Hope you're enjoying the session so far. It's a little bit late already on the day, but I hope that you will enjoy this light session. We have a deep dive into the relationship of a treasurer with the CFO and the board, right? In our day-to-day work, we're always struggling a little bit in communicating with the needs from the management team, and I think that this session will provide a lot of insights in this relationship. I'm going to give a little bit of some time to the panelists to introduce themselves, and maybe we can start with Helmut, and then we can go from this side.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Helmut Schnabel. I'm from Germany. I am the chairman of the CFO Forum Germany, which is the German CFO Association. I'm also chair of the International Group of Treasury Associations.
Super, thank you, Helmut. Caroline, you're next.
Hello, everyone. I'm based in the UK, but I am British, Irish, and Canadian. For those who are interested in that, I'm deputy chair of the International Group of Treasury Associations. Until the end of April, I was the chief executive of the Association of Corporate Treasurers, which many of you will know as we provide education globally for the Treasury community. Now I have a kind of portfolio career, shall we say. So I'm treasurer of Oxfam International, treasurer of the Chartered Association for Personnel and Development. I'm on the investment committee of the Elton John AIDS Foundation, and I do a few more other things with music education and Treasury FinTech.
Super, thank you, Caroline. Erwin?
Καλησπέρα σας. Ευχαριστώ πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Χαίρομαι που είμαι εδώ σήμερα. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erwin Bastianen. I'm a Treasury Director at Nike, covering a variety of topics, senior management reporting, crypto, PSPs, digital payments, and cash flow forecasting. And next to that, I'm the vice chairman of the Dutch Association of Corporate Treasurers and responsible for the technical committee in our association.
Super, thank you, Erwin. Francois, you're next. I think everyone knows you, but good to repeat.
It's my third AT conference in a row, so no, pleased to be invited again. So I have different functions, so I'm the chair of the Luxembourg Treasury Association because I'm based in Luxembourg. I'm also the chair of the European Association, you are a member of, as my peers here and together with me on the panel. And I have a third activity, I'm independent advisor in Treasury, having myself being a corporate treasury for many years in multinational companies.
Super, thank you very much. I have the first question for everyone. How do you think the role of the treasurer has been developed over the past years, and what would you say are the important strategic and behavioral skills that one should have? Maybe Francois, you can start?
As explained this morning in the EY session, so the role has evolved quite a lot. We have a broader role, so new activities, although it could vary from company to company because some could be involved in pension, having some tax insurance, captive operations, or ERM. In my former role, I was also in charge of enterprise risk management. But we have, generally speaking, a broader role that is quite interesting, but a lot of challenges because usually the team are the same, so we have broader scope, and I guess we will have an opportunity to talk about the crisis and all the new opportunities it will open for corporate treasurers. But definitely, if I look at my job when I started years ago, decades ago, and the role today of corporate treasurers of multinational companies, it has evolved enormously.
Caroline, from your experience?
Yes, so I think the role has changed as it has with the CFO role. I think in general, over time, there have been more and more things put to you. You can't just be a technician looking after a small area of the organisation. Now, the Association of Corporate Treasurers, and we have a representative here, Janet Legg, who you might want to talk to in the break if you want to find more about it. But it does research, and its research consistently over many years now has said that treasurers need to be more strategic and influential in order to be able to progress their careers. That's the big blocker for people at more senior levels. At slightly junior levels and creeping up on that and overtaking it generally, but not overtaking that point for the senior treasurers, but for treasurers in general, efficiency of working is what the research has shown last time. So that's quite interesting. You've got people who are having to become much more strategic, able to influence people, build relationships, etc. But they also have to work very efficiently, which suggests, of course, that they need to use technology appropriately, as well as learning some of the behaviours that will make them more efficient. And I think COVID was a moment which really shifted things, because at that point, for a lot of organisations, suddenly the CFO, who often is a bit detached from the treasurer, and the CEO on board, who often even more detached, it depends on the organisation, as Francois said, but what people woke up to was the fact that cash is king or queen, as I like to say. So then, the treasurer had a voice at the board often, and I think it's really interesting now when you talk to people, some treasurers have kept that relationship going and are having a healthy engagement with the board, and people are understanding that role of treasurer, which quite frankly they haven't always understood. And other people have maybe got a bit lazy or shy and stood back and are going back to how they used to be. Now, obviously, no one on this panel is of that nature, but I think it is a key thing to, if you've got that opportunity to be influencing strategically, cash and other aspects of Treasury are so important. Cash is the lifeblood of the organisation, and you need to have that seat at the table, so you need to have the skills that will allow you to communicate at that table. Sorry if that was a bit long.
Absolutely. And Helmut, based on your long experience, I think you have seen a lot.
Yeah, I have worked for several major companies in Germany. I would say this, treasurers today have to understand the strategy of the company and stand behind the treasury and behind this strategy. And this includes new strategies which have emerged over the last 10 years, like sustainability and ESG. And they have to be able to explain this to the banks, to the lenders, to the shareholders, to the investors. This is part of their mission.
Erwin, we go way back from Philips. How do you think that the role of the treasurer has changed over the years?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it has changed, but I want to echo what Caroline said. I think what we need to realize as treasurers, and let's say we're here in a safe environment, but maybe people don't want to hear it. We are a little bit, in most companies, we are the weird kids, right? Everybody's thinking about revenues while we think about collections. Everybody's thinking about net profit while we think about free cash flow. So we need to constantly bridge that gap in knowledge and perspective and keep that under the attention of the CFO and making sure that the cash thinking is also embedded at the board level, but also with our most important stakeholders in the company. I think also if you look at, let's say, I'm working now for almost 15 years, the CFO knows perfectly when to find us, let's say in the period 2009-2012 and in 2020, when cash was not there anymore. So that means that they know where to find you when there's no cash, but you also need to make sure that they find you when there is cash. And I think that's the role of the treasurer. Yeah.
Super. We're going to move now to you, to the audience. We will turn to the Slido for a question that we have prepared for you. And the question would be, probably you will see it on your phone, would you be interested in applying for a CFO role during your career? The answer is yes, most likely or possibly, unlikely, and no. We want to know your thoughts around this, of the Greek treasurers, and also our international participants, of course. Not sure if we have an early estimate. 50% is saying yes. 42, 43 possibly. "24 answers. It's quite interesting development. I think we're leaning a little bit towards the yes and possibly, right? 28, maybe we'll give 1 more minute. Right, so we have 40 for yes, 37 for possibly, and no, 13 unlikely, 10. We can move to the next question. We have another one. This is an open-end question. What is the most important attribute a treasurer should have in order to succeed in his or her role? We have his, it counts as his, her, and they. Adaptability, loyalty, analytical skills, flexibility, analytical mind and problem-solving skills, willingness to learn, cash management, risk management skills, reliability, communication, think outside the box. The answers are coming too fast. Broader knowledge, flexibility, leadership. It's a very interesting mixed bag of skills. I think the adaptability, yeah, you can separate the adaptability, the discipline, the knowledge of the profession. Caroline, given the treasurer has such skills and experience, do you see them as being prime candidates for a role of a CFO as a development, as the next stage in their career? Do they think that they want that role?
So I'd say a few things. I mean, this audience, obviously, there's a lot of positive response to that question. Though I know some research in the past that the ACT has carried out showed that a lot of treasurers said they didn't actually want to be a CFO because they love their job so much. And I think that also depends as well how they're seated, because in some organizations, they're very much empowered by the CFO, allowed to do their job effectively, and they're invited to the table, to the board, and so on. In other organizations, you might have it that the CFO doesn't empower or isn't interested in, and that could be quite demotivational. But I think, particularly what I'm seeing and talking to people, I think the younger generation of treasurers coming up, they are more seeing themselves going into that CFO role than in the past. And I would also say, to the question, will they be good? I think treasury skills are very, very key. But I think myself, having been a CFO for many years in many different companies, I wasn't from a treasury background. I kind of did treasury later, so I've done it in reverse. But what I did notice amongst my peers, it would be quite rare that you would have a treasurer. So people would just have in their heads that it's somebody who's an accountant, though many treasurers started off in accountancy, actually. But the expectation is that you've maybe had experience in audit, you've maybe had experience in other aspects, obviously financial accounting, management accounting, etc. And also hopefully pensions, insurance, etc., and things that do dip into treasury. But it's not always in people's mind that the treasurer should be in that role. But when you think about the skills that make the treasurer a bit different from, say, an accountant, you could say that accountants would tend to look historically and internally. That's how I always phrase it. And then I say, if you want to think about treasurer, they look externally and forward. And if you think about that for an effective strategic CFO, that's a very good positioning, because actually nowadays, who wants a CFO that's looking internally and backwards? You need somebody who has that skill to look forward. And so I think the skills are there. I think it's like it's also like the question of a CFO becoming chief executive. Often people don't see that as the natural progression. They might see it coming from somewhere else. So I think different organizations have different cultures that have different expectations, but I think the skills are there for the right person, but the right person has to have that strategic mindset and be able to engage with the board, as we said earlier.
Helmut, based on your experience as the chair of the CFO Association.
I can give you my German experience. When a company is searching a new CFO, the first thing it's doing, it's looking into the Treasury. That's the natural source of the future CFO. There are many examples of this. I give you 3 recent ones. The largest chemical company in the world is based in Germany, BASF. This summer, they promoted the treasurer into the CFO position. We have another major chemical company, Lanxess, in Germany. They promoted the treasurer again this summer into the CFO position. And here we have an interesting case, because this treasurer for many years has also headed investor relations. And this, in addition, qualified him for the CFO position. And when you read the press release of Lanxess, the chairman told the press that he had especially over the recent years appreciated the investor relations function of the treasurer, how well he explains the company to the world, and he was thanking him upon this promotion for this activity. It's very unusual. Third example, we have a medium-sized chip corporation in Germany, Siltronic, based in Munich. They just promoted again this summer the treasurer, a young lady, into the CFO position. And this is also an interesting case because in addition to being treasurer, this lady has headed controlling. So you see from these examples, it is ever more important that the person who makes it into the CFO functions can explain the company, understands the strategy and stands behind it, and is a good communicator and speaker, and a diligent explainer. Very important.
Francois, may we have your views?
I totally agree with what was said. So regarding the example given by Helmut, it's interesting because in the past and so far we can say that very seldom corporate treasurers become CFOs. I don't know the statistic, we discussed that with Caroline, but maybe it's less than 10%. So maybe it's a new trend, and I'm pleased to see that there are some examples. When you look at the result of the Slido, we see that 3/4 of the audience would apply for such a job. It's also maybe a new trend with a new generation, X, Y, and Z. But it's also cultural. It depends on the support. I totally agree with what Caroline said. So if you are encouraged and, let's say, involved in the board, in the audit committees, maybe you are more tempted to, with the support of the CFO, to become one day CFO, deputy CFO. But in some companies, not the case. So, and then the last point, a lot of people love their job. So when you are a treasurer, it's forever. So maybe you change the company, you go for a bigger role or a bigger company, but you stay in treasury. And so we know a lot of peers who did their whole career in treasury. So, but good to see if there is some change, because I totally agree. And the same with enterprise risk management. Who is better placed to assess risk, to quantify the risk than the corporate treasurers? But the same for ERM. So a lot of people are not applying for the job of chief risk officer, although they have all the skills. But good to see if we have a trend. We should ask.
The young generation, exactly.
Erwin is the best place.
Yeah, to be honest, in the Dutch market, we do not see this trend yet. But as Francois said, I mean, I would be extremely positive if it happens. What we see more happening, let's say, with our members and also internally, let's say, if people reach the group treasurer level and indeed have this ambition to become a CFO, that they often first become the FD of a business unit or of a geo, and then make the step to CFO. So let's say you have one step in between to build the control and the accounting knowledge a bit wider. But the step directly from group treasurer to CFO, we don't see a lot yet in the Dutch market, unfortunately. But
actually, it's what our peer Jan Martin Nuffer from the Austrian Association did. So he's no an affiliate or joint venture of the company. So maybe it's an intermediate step before becoming a CFO.
Right. Diversify. So the outcome of the question is to diversify a little bit the role and then get experience from the FP&A, from the business,
from
and
the
then
operations and back to
exactly. For the next question, is the relationship between the treasurer and the board generally a close one? Should it be? What are the benefits and what are the blockers for that? Maybe Erwin?
Yeah, I think it should be a close one. As mentioned, we see in general, I see waves. Of course, I work for a company which in generally is cash rich, so we are definitely not on top of the CFO's agenda normally. As said, at the onset of COVID, he knew where to find us on a daily basis, but that disappeared again a little bit. I do think it's very important. I mean, cash is king or queen. Definitely, I mean, as soon as you pay your salaries one day too late in your company, then everybody starts caring about cash, but until that moment it's maybe not top of mind. But yeah, maybe I'm not the right person to talk because, as said, we are a cash-rich company, so for Nike it doesn't matter too much if the cash comes in tomorrow or next week, and therefore the CFO gives a bit less attention. What we did accomplish within Nike is that we developed a new financial framework where free cash flow is one of the enterprise KPIs. So in that way, let's say as Treasury, we did position ourselves more on top. And we are, for example, now part of our earnings calls, etc. We do the preparations, and free cash flow is one of the key KPIs that we communicate to our shareholders. So yeah, does that answer it?
Super. Helmut, close relationship or not?
Definitely a close relationship for the treasurer. The CFO is the #1 relationship on the board on a permanent basis. All major beyond cash flow management and payments management, all major financial decisions have to be taken up to the CFO, to the entire board, and even to the supervisory board, and they have to be understood. And the counseling has to come from the Treasury, particularly in extreme situations of the corporations, just as an example. Mergers and acquisitions often lead to a strong increase of the leverage of the entire group. This is an extreme decision. And the consequences of this, that a major part of operating earnings will go into interest expense and into repayment. All this has to be analyzed and communicated from the Treasury up to the entire corporation. And that includes questions like a rights issue, that includes questions like buyback of shares, that includes issuing a major sustainability bond. So this is a very important connection.
Mm-hmm. Francois?
Yeah, no, I agree. It depends on the company. So are you cash rich, cash poor? What is your own situation? And of course, all the recent crises, not only COVID and the war in Ukraine, but 2008, 11. So we had, let's say, global crisis. And so sometimes micro crisis in some companies. So when you have problems, so they remember that we need a treasurer. And so you come suddenly back into the limelight. But I have the impression that sometimes after the crisis, they forget you, and so you reposition yourself where you were before. So we have opportunities. I'm not sure that we are always good placed or well equipped to seize this kind of opportunities and to better position ourselves. But of course, crises are let's say, the positive side for us. It's an opportunity to reposition ourselves and to remind that not only cash, but a lot of things are, again, counterparty risk. Recently with the SVB, counterparty risk, suddenly they were scared, okay, where is our money for a cash-rich place? Should we diversify? What is the way we assess the counterparty risk? So I think it's opportunities. I'm not sure that we're always, let's say, taking the opportunities to reposition ourselves. But okay, compared to a couple of years ago, it has certainly evolved in the right direction.
Caroline, I started with you. I'm going to close with you.
Yes, so just reflecting on what my colleagues have said, I think there is a kind of supply and demand here thing. And so, yeah, if you're issuing a bond, if you're involved in M&A deals, if there's COVID and there's cash issues, whatever, then you're going to find it easy to have that relationship, which I do think is important, because I think the Treasurer's role is important. So I was just thinking, as everyone was talking, well, what have I got to add to this? And I was thinking, well, okay, what are the things that you need to do if you're not in that situation that you're of interest, because you're not issuing bonds and you're not in an M&A deal, etc. So I was thinking, on the one hand, it's really important to develop your strategic influencing skills so that you can have relationships so that people can trust you, and then if something comes up, they will come to you naturally because you've built a relationship. 2, you have to really understand the business inside out and really go out of your way and show your colleagues that you do genuinely want to understand it. Because if you understand the business, then you can predict what it might need and be really useful when there's a sudden change or crisis. And these are probably all the wrong order, because then the third thing I was going to say is education. You need, either through qualifications that the various associations provide, or through learning on the job from somebody who's really good. But that's difficult because when you do that, you learn about that business. Whereas if you do a qualification, like one of the ACT ones, because I know them best, well, you learn all about Treasury. And then that means if something happens that's unexpected, you then know what to do. Whereas if you haven't got any experience in and you get to know the business and you're really getting on with your colleagues, but then you don't anticipate something or you can't see what to do in a situation, you won't be effective. So I would say that those are the things, in order to have that effective relationship, which I think is important, because I think treasurers they help. As we say, in the mission of ACT that I helped develop at the time, it's societies as well as companies can live or die if the treasurer gets it wrong. And there have been cases over time where the treasurer got something wrong and things imploded. And it can have a huge, devastating effect on many people, their employment, etc. So getting it right is really important. And sometimes you've got to work hard for the board to understand that.
So we can conclude from the session that it's not only the analytical factor and all the elements, the strategic and the behavioral that the treasurer should have, but it's also paramount importance, the relationship with the board, the relationship with the CFO, they need to be close. Exactly. Yeah. I think we can move to the questions, if we have any. No? We are the most efficient panel. Thank you very much, everyone.